a bright day with sunny spells and temperatures picking up to 7-8 degrees Celsius, maybe 10 in the southwest. Again, the highest temperatures likely over northern Scotland, 10, 11, maybe 12 in Aberdeenshire. Stays quite breezy here through the course of Thursday evening. We'll see a bit more rain heading into the Northern Isles. Again, most places dry. And again, where we've got the clear skies, we'll see that double threat of frost and fog. If anything, probably more fog as we head into Friday morning. And again, it could stick around, certainly through into the late morning, perhaps even all day in a few locations. But if you don't get the fog, you should generally have another sunny day, the main exception being that patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. Generally, temperatures a little lower on Friday, and especially if the fog sticks, we may struggle to get much above 2 or 3 Celsius. But generally, the outlook is pretty dry. Some sunshine, some dense fog patches, and particularly in the south, frosty conditions in the mornings. Bye for now.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight. With Boris Johnson facing ending his premiership on political death row, can he save his skin by proving he's capable of leading a truly Conservative government? I'll explain in my digest while that's the only option left for the embattled PM. Before I get the thoughts of tonight's superstar panel, Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, radio royalty Neil Fox, and political commentator Daisy McAndrew. Do you accept Boris Johnson's apology today? I'll get your verdict in the clash. And two grand dames of the Conservative movement, former Tory Minister Edwina Currie and Kathy Gyngell, editor of The Conservative Woman, will debate. Where is the anger towards the pampered civil servants behind that fateful party invite? Rod Liddell says it's time to get tough on the bureaucrats who think they're untouchable in uncancelled. Plus, with the push to axe Boris being dubbed the revenge of the Ramonas, do we need him to ensure Brexit isn't sabotaged? I'll put that to my panel too. In other news, has Gen Z's obsession with fetishising feelings left them constantly miserable? Daily Telegraph star columnist and best-selling author Celia Walden is here on why youngsters need to toughen up like generations before them. Breaking news tonight, Prince Andrew discovers his civil sex case trial will go ahead. So how will he fight back? And how does the palace respond to this PR nightmare? My God, I feel for the Queen. Robert Jobson has all of the latest in crown jewels. The wokest man in Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio, loves banging on about the environment on Twitter. And with Netflix climate change satire, Don't Look Up.
discovered a very large comet.
But it looks like he's not green enough to ditch his carbon-spewing super yacht. GB News star Darren Grimes investigates eco-hypocrisy on the seas and closer to home in The Outsider. Plus, in the Media Buzz, experts say the UK is closer than lockdown-loving countries like France and the Netherlands or anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, in fact, to the end of this pandemic. So did we get it right all along? And as ever, we'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and crown another Greatest Britain and Union Jack has. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. What a sorry spectacle. What a despicable mess. What a lesson in why we must never trust those trying to inflict maximum control on our lives. Lie upon lie has compounded this crisis, and that's why Boris Johnson, who won a stomping majority, we've got to remember, less than 3 years ago, currently finds himself on political death row. The government's moral authority is in tatters. Honestly, as a population, we must learn lessons from this. Our leaders were never scared. And even now, they are not following these so-called rules. They want us to. So we should be changing our behaviour in kind. In my opinion, the law should immediately be changed so that we can rip off those goddamn masks, go back into the office, socialise till our heart's content, especially in Scotland and Wales, and banish lockdowns forevermore. I really think now change has to come from us, not the lying politicians. But you know, I was a supporter of Boris Johnson too. And I credit him with delivering Brexit. I do actually think he has one final chance to save his premiership. Oh, and by the way, I keep hearing folk today, have you heard this? Both from folk in the establishment and the opposition saying, Boris must go because he no longer has the authority to introduce new lockdown restrictions on us. That's worrying to me. What's afoot? Do the COVID hysterics want, say, PM Michael Gove to continue their ridiculous lockdown policies? Well, I say hell no to that. And I will give my verdict on how Boris can save his premiership in my digest very shortly. Then my superstar panel take me on. Let's take a look at them. For the first time this year, the Daily Mail star columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel. Broadcaster Neil Fox, and political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. But before I bring them in, let's get the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks, Dan. You're with GB News. The top stories this hour. Prince Andrew is now facing a civil sex abuse trial after a US judge dismissed a motion by his lawyers to have the case thrown out. The Duke of York's legal team argued Virginia Giuffre relinquished her rights to sue anyone when she signed an agreement with a convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, in 2009. Ms. Giuffre claims she was sexually assaulted by the prince when she was 17. He denies any wrongdoing. Lisa Bloom, a lawyer who represents victims of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, says she doesn't expect the case to be settled out of court.
All of these technical arguments that Prince Andrew has raised. First, he said he wasn't properly served with a lawsuit. Then he says it should be thrown out because of a prior agreement that he was not even a party to between Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, that the court didn't have jurisdiction. I mean, all of these arguments are now rejected. I don't see Virginia accepting anything other than an admission that this happened and an apology to her and payment of a significant amount of compensation. And I just don't see him doing that. So I think he's going to continue to fight the case.
Lisa Bloom. Well, the other big story today, the Prime Minister under pressure to resign after admitting he did attend a drinks party during the first lockdown. Boris Johnson has apologised and taken full responsibility for the event, which was held in the Downing Street Garden. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, and other opposition leaders and a number of Conservative MPs say his position is now untenable. Mr Johnson says he believed it was a work event.
With hindsight, I should have sent everyone back inside. I should have found some other way to thank them. And I should have recognised that even if it could be said technically to fall within the guidance, there would be millions and millions of people who simply would not see it that way.
after months of deceit and deception, the pathetic spectacle of a man who's run out of road. His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public.
Sir Keir Starmer. A Met police officer accused of a series of sex offences has appeared in court to face a further 9 charges. David Carrick now faces 29 allegations, including 13 counts of rape against 8 women. He'll next appear at St Albans Crown Court in just over 2 weeks' time. The rollout of smart motorways in England has been suspended over safety concerns. The Department for Transport says it follows several fatal crashes on the hard shoulder. New smart motorways are being put on hold for at least 5 years. On your radio, via DAB+, on TV and online. This is GB News.
Why the hell didn't he do it weeks ago? Instead of almost certainly misleading Parliament by parroting an obvious obfuscation that he was sickened by Number 10 partying and had no idea it was going on, he did know. He attended. While all of us mugs were picking which relative or best friend we could go on a 2-metre socially distanced walk with, our first social contact for 2 months. As is so predictably the case, Boris Johnson's Partygate cover-up has compounded the perilous state of his leadership tonight, as Tory backbenchers rightly ponder whether his benefit electorally has run out. It's becoming increasingly obvious that in the medium term, this apology may not be enough to save his premiership.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise. I know that millions of people across this country have made extraordinary sacrifices over the last 18 months. I know the anguish that they have been through, unable to mourn their relatives, unable to live their lives as they want, or to do the things they love. And I know the rage they feel with me and with the government I lead when they think that in Downing Street itself, the rules are not being properly followed by the people who make the rules. And though I cannot anticipate the conclusions of the current inquiry, I have learned enough to know that there were things we simply did not get right. And I must take responsibility.
But the Conservative Party must be very careful here, or it risks destroying itself. We must remember the political and media establishment have campaigned against Boris Johnson from the moment he replaced Theresa May. They blame him for Brexit and have always wanted to do everything possible to derail the biggest democratic mandate in the history of British politics, to leave the EU. So before a painful leadership contest, which is almost inevitable now, I believe today's apology buys Boris a few weeks' breathing room, time to prove to his party that he can lead a truly Conservative government. But boy, oh boy, he has to genuinely change. And sadly, I'm starting to doubt if he actually has the ability to do that. Because here's the thing, that change would mean removing all remaining coronavirus restrictions on our lives and ruling out further lockdowns forevermore. The whole Surrey saga of these Downing Street parties is categorical proof that the rules are not only inhumane, they are impossible for any normal human being to follow. Here's an uncomfortable truth based on numerous inside sources. Staff at Number 10 Downing Street have never worn masks at work. Yet our school kids are being forced to do so for up to 8 hours a day. That is an outrage. So Boris must use this opportunity now to end the pandemic, remove all legal restrictions. Sure, give us advice when you think it's genuinely necessary, but we'll choose if it makes sense to curtail our lives, exactly as you, Boris, and everyone else at Number 10 did. From this moment on, we should no longer be forced to work from home or wear masks as part of Plan BS that I've always said was futile to begin with. That can only be the beginning of the change, though. To win his backbenchers over, Boris must dramatically reverse his agenda and make Tories the low-tax party once more. That means axing the national insurance hike, slashing VAT on electricity bills, and removing the outrageous green levies too. He must also stop this Tory government's march to becoming some sort of nanny state on speed, starting with Environment Secretary George Eustace's ban on sauce sachet packages and everything else being ruined to try and get to net zero first. He must also go through with key promises to stop the Channel migrant crisis, gain control of our borders, tackle terrorism, especially homegrown terrorism, wage war on the woke-topians throughout the public sector blob, and curtail the dangerous powers of the biased BBC. I have to say, it's unbelievable to me that I'm even having to say this. I had so much hope for Boris Johnson. He said he was going to do all of that. But let's be honest, on so many fronts, he has been a major disappointment, enthralled by his woke eco-warrior wife, Carrie, taken in by the doomsday scientists who have been proven wrong so many times, and the mainstream media too, those journalists at the BBC, ITV and Sky News who have a clear agenda. Boris Johnson's apology today is not enough. He has to dramatically reverse course if he has any hope of surviving as Prime Minister after May's local elections. But am I right? Let me bring in my superstar panel, the Daily Mail star columnist and the broadcaster Amanda Platel, the radio royalty Neil Fox, and political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. So, Amanda Patel, let me start with you. You have seen how brutal the Tory party can be in your former role, obviously as Communications Secretary for the former Tory leader William Hague. Is there anything that Boris can do to survive this?
It's lovely to be back, Dan, but I'm thinking I could have read out that script because that is exactly what I think.
Oh, good.
It's exactly what I think.
We agree.
And I really think that at this stage, the one hope that I have after all this disastrous party stuff, and whether it was work or whether it was a party, whether it was rosé, all the rest of it, is that the only hope for Boris is for his own MPs is that he now completely seizes a properly Tory agenda.
And Daisy McAndrew... Yes, please.
Just before you go, I've got a present for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is a good start to the show. I need cheering up after today.
This is actually a work gift because this proves that this is Tesco's finest rosé to prove that we are working tonight and not just here drinking our...
Okay. So this is going to be a work meeting. Can I just assure you I do not drink during the broadcast, but we will drink it at 11 o'clock and, then the work meeting will get a little bit wild. Daisy McAndrew, I do think there is a really interesting point here, which is that the Tory backbenchers have been ignored for so long. I think that's why we've gone down, and I know you disagree with me on some of it, but why we've gone down this very dystopian path when it comes to COVID in particular. So is this not the chance for the Tory backbenchers to actually finally exert control over Boris Johnson and they can make him the Prime Minister that they always wanted him to be?
But that shouldn't be the way that a parliamentary party works. You shouldn't have the tail wagging the dog. The leadership should come from the front of the dog, not the back of the dog. And that's the problem that we've got at the moment. And I think it was actually funny watching Judy James, who I don't always agree with, the body language.
Oh, she's brilliant. The queen of body language.
It was on this show a couple of weeks ago. She said that she didn't think Boris Johnson wanted to be Prime Minister anymore. And my ears picked up and I thought, rubbish. And actually, ever since she said it, I've been watching him with a slightly different outlook. And I'm beginning to agree with her. Watching him today, I thought the oomph, the stuffing has come out of this teddy bear. The oomph has come out of him. I don't think he even wants to be there.
He was devastated today, Amanda.
Didn't you think that there was, I watched it amongst a whole pile of cynics of Boris, of which I'm one. I thought that he came across as actually quite humble.
It was a good apology to me.
But Neil Fox, you're quite angry, aren't you? Because for you, this is about honesty, not about conservatism.
Well, when you watch the apology today, and it was a good apology, OK, and it did seem very humble and heartfelt, except we've seen it before. And the problem is, the big agendas, the big questions that politicians have to answer sometimes, people don't always agree with. Actually, what really irks people and gets up their nose is these small things when we all have to stay at home 2 hours after, they've issued. It was 2 hours after they had announced that we can't actually go out, apart from with one person outside social distance, that they're having a party. And so for most of us, you just go, Are you that stupid that you don't think we'll find out that all these people got sent emails? But then it's not that they're stupid. There's just an arrogance that they think, actually, we'll tell you to do one thing and we in our little world will do something else. And this has been going on for years in politics. And I do think they have to understand that in the world we live in now of multimedia, social media and every other form of media, people find out this stuff.
But Daisy,
and it gets up people.
Why is this only coming out now? Are journalists in this country that bad? Are they so in with the establishment? Or is there some sort of agenda why this is now being released almost 2 years on?
I think you're being much too cynical about the role of the press in this, because there have been large elements of the press who can't stand Boris. There have also been a lot of cheerleaders for Boris. I mean, really against all the evidence. And as Neil was saying,
not in the broadcast media.
No.
But they have been saying consistently how popular he is. It's only now that his popularity is waning that they're changing their tune. But I don't think they've necessarily... We know that Paul Brand at ITV, who's had amazing series of scoops, and it's been fantastic for him. But I don't think really it's the media that's telling. I think what's happening is that with Boris, his popularity was always so much that everything was priced in, everyone always said. So we knew he had lots of affairs. We knew he had lots of children. We knew that he'd been in trouble with his employers, whether it was newspapers or whatever.
Trouble with the truth.
And trouble with the truth. And we forgave it because it was Boris. But also, I think one of the things that we didn't really think about is those lies didn't affect us.
Yeah.
They affected his wives and they affected his employers and his employees. Yeah. It didn't affect us. This lie affects us, and it's making us really, really angry. And I think that's been a big shift, and suddenly we're not willing to forgive this. And I disagree with Neil. I don't think that apology was a decent apology. I think it was quite well delivered, but actually it was a boyfriend apology. It was, I'm sorry if you think that. Brackets, you're crazy.
Well, Amanda, he has to wait, doesn't he? He is waiting for the Gray inquiry to come back. What I think was very telling today, though, Amanda, is when Keir Starmer put him on the spot and asked if he might resign, Boris Johnson didn't rule that out. So there is some thinking that if this inquiry is so devastating to him, then maybe he will quit. But there is a chance that she will come back and say, because this was his house, actually, there was a way. Now, I'm not saying morally it was the right thing to do. We all know morally it wasn't the right thing to do. But legally, he might be OK, and that might save him.
Two interesting things I learnt today in the office and from my contacts. One was the grounds of number 10 are actually royal property, and therefore normal laws do not apply there. So the laws that apply to you and me and everyone else not being able to go to a funeral do not apply. So that could be used. And the second thing is, and this is not after you, Daisy, you know, the tail wagging the dog. I was told that one of the excuses he was going to put forward was that at 6 o'clock, the only reason he was in the garden is that's when he takes Dylan out for his little poo-poo.
And you've always got to lower the tone, Amanda Platel, don't you?
He just happened to bump into 30 people drinking Tesco Rosé.
Yeah, happened to find a glass in his hand. Also, May the 20th is my birthday. So everyone was saying to me, oh, what were you doing on that day? And I was like, I can bloody tell you what I was doing. Not having a party. Not having a birthday party. And that's one of the...
I did not make that story up.
And also, you know what, whether it is legal or not, Amanda, whether it is royal property and so legally, it doesn't matter. Because emotions just go,
absolutely morally it doesn't matter, but the point is it might mean that the Gray inquiry gives Boris a little bit of wriggle room in order to survive. Although when you've got the entire Tory party in Scotland turning against him and saying he has to go,
having said that, the Tory party in Scotland is quite tiny.
Yeah,
and it's still a party. It's
and the leader of the Tory party, guess what his majority is? 513 votes. He'll be out like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in a very, very serious situation. And I think he's probably thanking his lucky stars that Prince Andrew's come along today to take away some of the heat.
Well, I was thinking that earlier from a cynical point of view. I was. Very good timing for Boris. Look, I also think the Tory party just isn't ready for a leadership challenge right now. And it makes much more sense from a strategic point of view if you are Sunak or Truss or Jeremy Hunt, say it isn't so, it can't be him, or Gove, God, no. But if you are one of those folk who want the big job, surely you let Boris take the hit at the local elections in May, which by all accounts are going to be utterly catastrophic for the Tory party, and you've got a few months to prepare up until that point to be ready to strike.
I don't think we as a nation are ready for an election or a leadership election.
No.
We just
let us come through this pandemic. Exactly.
Yeah, we just want someone to see it through and just in a way just feel like there are some safe hands, get us through it so we can take the masks off and live normally.
And we are going to be talking later in the show, by the way, because I have a lot of people who think we are sometimes harsh on Boris, but actually, I have credited him a lot over the past few days for staring down the doomsday scientists, not going down the path of continental Europe.
His record on COVID is fantastic.
Yeah.
OK, you know, we're coming out of it quicker than any other country in Europe.
His decision-making on
what do I
COVID
care about
was
a
not
party?
Fantastic.
Or, sorry?
I think his decision-making on COVID was not fantastic. I think it is more by accident than design.
Oh, Daisy, now you would say that, darling.
Well, look,
I wasn't calling for harsher lockdowns. What I was calling for was quicker decisions.
Well, look,
and I think we could see that he did sort of shilly-shally along the way.
And we've got lots of time to tackle this. We're going to be covering what is a big political story from all angles throughout the show. My superstar panel will be with me all evening. Thank you, Amanda Platel, Neil Fox and Daisy McAndrew. But coming up, as Daisy just mentioned, as Prince Andrew discovers he will face a civil trial, what moves will the embattled Duke and the monarchy make now? Royal author Robert Jobson explains all in Crown Jewels. Next, after the PM is forced to face the music for Partygate, do you accept Boris Johnson's apology? Two grand dames of the Conservative movement, ex-Tory Minister Edwina Currie and editor of the Conservative Woman Cathy Gingell, share their unbridled and opposing views. But today, more than ever, this segment for me is about what you think. So, do you accept this apology from Boris? Have you forgiven him? You can email me now with your thoughts, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet us at GBNews, and we've got a poll running there too. We'll bring you the results very shortly.
Hello, getting cold out there now. The sun has gone down. We'll keep largely clear skies across the south, but it will turn foggy in places, but also a frost likely across the south first thing in the morning, thanks to high pressure. Further north, notice quite a few isobars on the chart. It's been a windy day across northern Scotland. It stays windy here overnight, and that breeze will help to prevent a frost and will continue to bring quite a lot of cloud across certainly western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Elsewhere, though, clear skies, and especially in the south with the light winds turning cold here. Frost likely even in towns and cities. We'll get down a touch below freezing, and a few dense fog patches, which this time of year are hard to shift, so certainly be around for the rush hour and could stick around even into the afternoon in a few locations. We'll keep thicker clouds across the northwest of Scotland, patchy rain over the Highlands and the Western Isles, stays pretty blustery in the far north as well. But elsewhere, the winds are light and for many, a bright day with sunny spells and temperatures picking up to 7-8 degrees Celsius, maybe 10 in the southwest. Again, the highest temperatures likely over northern Scotland, 10, 11, maybe 12 in Aberdeenshire. Stays quite breezy here through the course of Thursday evening. We'll see a bit more rain heading into the Northern Isles. Again, most places dry. And again, where we've got the clear skies, we'll see that double threat of frost and fog. If anything, probably more fog as we head into Friday morning. And again, it could stick around, certainly through into the late morning, perhaps even all day in a few locations. But if you don't get the fog, you should generally have another sunny day, the main exception being that patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. Generally, temperatures a little lower on Friday, and especially if the fog sticks, we may struggle to get much above 2 or 3 Celsius. But generally, the outlook is pretty dry. Some sunshine, some dense fog patches, and particularly in the south, frosty conditions in the mornings. Bye for now.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Time now for The Clash. And today, as you know, Boris Johnson faced the music about his alleged partying in a difficult PMQs. The Prime Minister attempted to restore trust with the nation and within his party by issuing a frank apology, but seemed so bruised by the ordeal that he couldn't give Labour leader Keir Starmer a straight answer when asked if he were resigning.
Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
But as for his political point, I don't think that he should preempt the outcome of the inquiry, and he will have a further opportunity, Mr. Speaker, I hope, to question me as soon as possible.
One person who didn't accept the PM's apology is Douglas Ross, leader of the Scottish Conservative Party.
The Prime Minister attended this gathering party event in Downing Street on the 20th of May. Then he could not continue as Prime Minister. So, regretfully, I have to say that his position is no longer tenable.
Staunch Brexiteer and lockdown opponent William Ragg was another prominent Tory calling for Boris to resign after branding his position untenable too. So with very different wings of the party and former allies concerned the row has turned off the electorate, the most important question now for the PM's survival is, do you accept his apology? Let me know. My email address, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me @gbnews, and we've got a poll running there right now. But to give their verdict first, two grand dams of the Conservative movement, former Tory Minister Edwina Currie and editor of the Conservative Woman Cathy Gingell. So, Edwina, let me start with you, because you have accepted this apology from Boris Johnson. Why?
Oh, I thought it was brilliantly done. It was a piece of pure theatre. He looked very chastened. He'd even had a haircut. I thought he looked a little bit like a medieval monk who had been caught doing naughty things with the young novices, and that he was extremely chastened. And indeed, I thought what he said was absolutely right, that with hindsight, what he should have done, and he implied this, was go out into the garden waving his arms like windmills and saying, what the heck are you lot all doing? We just told the nation they can't do this. Get back to your work right now. And if you've finished your work, then get home. He didn't do that. But
Edwina, the reason he didn't do that is because they haven't been following the rules at Downing Street the whole time.
Hang on a minute. What really I think matters is I don't think the nation wants to have either an election or a general election right now. We are still in the middle of the pandemic. The figures are going down. We can begin to see the light at the end of this awful tunnel. But the last thing we need is political instability. And I don't think there's any appetite in the Conservative Party at large in the country for an election campaign. And in the end, if you look at and see who the alternatives might be, you can see that Boris is still the towering figure in the party and in the country. And we'd like him to carry on with it and do a few other things like levelling up and making sure we can come out of the difficulties with inflation and a few other things like that. A lot more important than what went on nearly 2 years ago in the Downing Street garden.
OK, no, I think a lot of people will agree with you, Edwina, and you accept his apology. So, Kathy Ginchel, why do you not believe that Boris Johnson is really sorry? And why have you not accepted his apology today?
I just find Edwina's position is so cynical. Basically, what she's saying, it doesn't matter whether we accept it or not. The fact principle no longer matters. The fact is the party certainly, I'm quite sure, doesn't want to get rid of him. They're in a way as bad as him. They've got the leader they chose. No, his apology is not worth the paper it's written on. Boris is incapable of telling the truth. In fact, I will not call him Boris, Mr. Johnson. We treat him as a friend. This is appalling. He's a bad friend. He's a destructive man. He's run an extremely destructive, unnecessary COVID policy. That incident, in fact, had we known, revealed then at that time. Since then, we've had 20 months of his lies. We've had 20 months of terrible mental health damage done to children with unnecessary lockdowns, being taken out of school. I'm astonished that in your discussion, in your panel, your great panel, not one of them mentioned children, not one of them mentioned the old people who've died, not of COVID in care homes, but of
I mentioned it, though.
Policy.
I mentioned it, though.
You did, Dan. You did, Dan. But basically, if the Conservative Party had any conservatism and decency in it at all, they would have called out Boris months and months ago. We at the Conservative Woman, now TCW, Defending Freedom, we regard him as feckless, entitled, hypocritical, destructive, a man without a moral compass. What are we doing in this country, allowing ourselves to have a prime minister like that? If the Conservative Party can do no better, they don't deserve to be in power. And if the only reason Labour can call him out because they want us all to be Stalinists in the way we treat the country and micromanage people's life, they don't need to be there either. It's about time we had a real and honest conversation about what's happened to this country in the last 20 months, because it's shocking. £400 billion debt, our kids' futures wrecked.
Edwina, how do you respond to that? Because there are a lot of people who say, actually, that the Conservative Party is no longer conservative.
In the following way, if I may, Dan. The first is I've never heard of the Conservative Women website. I've been a member of the Conservative Party for the best part of 60 years, and I'm still involved as president
it's a good
of our
website.
local
You should check it
Conservative
out.
Association. So I'm not going to take any lessons, and I say this with a smile on my face, about what conservatism is from somebody running something I've never heard of and that didn't exist when I was a member of Parliament, for goodness sake. Now, look, you're hostile, I understand, Kathy, to the way that the government has conducted itself and advised us to do it during the pandemic. If we had a Labour government, which is the only alternative to Boris, we'd have been in lockdown by now since Christmas. So they would have been far worse. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you're going to end up with, if you're not careful, a much weakened Conservative Party, far fewer members on the backbenches who are Conservative, and you'll end up with a Labour government. And that would be far worse for this country at every single level.
Although, Kathy, Kathy, earlier today, though, you did seem to agree with Edwina there, because you tweeted saying, those baying for blood, be careful what you wish for. Who is drip feeding this information? Why have they chosen now? So many knew for so long. Why speaking now? Who is the alternative? Who wants to go back to a lockdown? So you do have suspicions, like I do, Kathy, that actually there are certain folk who want to use this to get a prime minister that is more palatable to the lockdown lobby. And I'm worried about that.
But what's happened? Yes, what's happened all along? Boris has been a stooge in number 10. He's a stooge for Sage. He's a stooge for two deeply corrupt men, Whitty and Vallance. And I would imagine this has been deliberately leaked at a point when the whole narrative, COVID policy narrative, is unraveling. The vaccines aren't working. It's absolutely clear that Omicron is not a danger. The doom-mongering thing that we're going to have 6,000 deaths, they said a month ago, simply hasn't happened. So, yes, this is the timing it comes out. But Boris will carry on being a stooge. And so you're asking for a fairy godmother to come along and both change him and the Conservative Party. I don't think it's going to happen.
OK, Edwina, how do you respond to Cathy saying Boris has just been a stooge at Number 10? Because that's very strong criticism. What would you say, Edwina?
No, that's absolute nonsense. What ministers do is they listen to the information, the advice and the forecasts that come to them. And then it's their job to do the hard bit, which is to decide. I think what you said about people like Chris Whitty is offensive. Not you, Dan, but Cathy. So offensive and stupid. And with respect, if you go to the country with an attitude like that, you will lose seats all over the place. That's not the way forward. Most of the country recognise that, in fact, the government has done a good job, not perfect, nobody could, that we would have needed hindsight to do a perfect job. That's never available. But the scientists are good and decent and honourable people who are doing their best. That I think you have to recognise. You want a saint? Have Theresa May back. She was useless. She was particularly useless when it came to things like that mattered like Brexit. And I think in many ways she's got a nerve to be criticising her successor. But, you know, Boris is not perfect. Nobody thinks he is. I think the electorate, particularly in the north of England, reckon that, you know, they made a kind of satanic pact with him, Dan, all those months ago, over 2 years ago. They recognised that they were doing something a little dangerous, but they were saying to Boris, you deliver, particularly on Brexit, and we will vote for you.
Yes, and
that's
Cathy,
exactly
look,
the situation we're still in.
Boris does have positive qualities, and Cathy, I have always credited with him for delivering Brexit in a way that Theresa May did spectacularly fail. I guess the question here is, though, has the public lost support because they feel like Boris is no longer in it with them?
I don't know how many people ever really thought that. The media has actually been very kind to Boris, the mainstream media. They've been astonishingly uncritical of his COVID policies, but that's not surprising because the Cabinet Office has spent £1 billion on scaremongering propaganda. Yeah. We've had a very left-leaning, communist, Stalinistic, Soviet-esque type of sage scientists, which do not reflect all the very good scientists in this country, like Sunita Gupta, Carl Hennigan. There are so many scientists who've been cut out and ignored. There is so much information that's been denied. The doom mongers have never been called to account. When
okay, final word. No, I agree.
That's got nothing to do with. That's got nothing to do with Boris's
advice. But the people of the country have been very let down by the mainstream media. Not, thank God, by GBNews, which is the first broadcasting outlet to attempt to do some balance and some investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. And last night on the show, I did challenge all of those modders who wanted to plunge us into lockdown again. But final word to you, Edwina, I guess the great thing is that this time, because I agree with Cathy that in the past, Boris Johnson had given in to them too easily. But this time, when the rest of continental Europe locked down, Boris Johnson stood up to them and said no, and that has turned out to be the right decision.
That's absolutely right. I think you should bear in mind as well, Dan, that this latest revelation came from Dominic Cummings. Cummings was eventually given the push after a very long piece of rope. And I think he's had it in for Boris Johnson ever since.
Well, yes, but you don't deny that the party happened, though. It did happen.
Yeah, but it's pure spite, all of this. You know, all these events are more than getting on for 2 years ago now, when we were in the height of lockdown. And of course, they shouldn't have had the party. I'm not going to defend the party. I'm sure Cathy would defend the party because Cathy didn't think that we should have any kind of lockdown of any kind. So
but they were the ones who introduced the rule. Well, no, but the point is they were the ones that introduced the rule. Anyway, what a debate.
I'd like to see Boris continue concentrating on what really matters. What matters for most people right now is worrying about prices of gas and electricity and
well, yes, it is, but freedom is important too. Cathy, final quick word to you.
Well, I think Boris has let us down on absolutely every front. I don't think he's fit. I think he broke the law. And I think if we lose in this country the idea of taking responsibility for what you do, and if we lose that entirely, we are finally ultimately lost as a democratic society.
Absolutely fascinating
he should
debate.
Resign. He won't, and the Conservative Party won't make him, but he should resign.
And time will tell. Absolutely fascinating debate. Thank you so much. I knew it was going to be a good one. That was former Tory Minister Edwina Currie. and editor of the conservative woman website TCW, Fighting for Freedom. Kathy said it is now called Kathy Gingell. Thank you both so much. So who do you agree with? Steve on Twitter says, I don't care at all about this. I care more about my bills and illegal immigration. Julian via email says, Boris has lost the trust of the country. He needs replacing now, or you run the risk of Starmer. Yes, that is a risk. I'm worried about that, I will admit. Alf, also via Twitter, says, I'm not sure there is anyone better. What I want to see is the UK moving forward. Today's PMQs was not about getting things moving forward. Now is the time to do something positive and make the most of opportunities. And your verdict is now, and I've been fascinated about this one. Wow, just 40% of you, 4 in 10, do accept Boris Johnson's apology for his attendance at the garden party, but 60% of you agree with Kathy Gingell and say, no, Boris, we don't accept it. Really fascinating. Of course, much more on this on the way. But also coming up, the wokest man in Hollywood. The star of Don't Look Up, Leonardo DiCaprio, has exposed himself as an eco-hypocrite. Imagine that. Will the Green Elite ever practice what they preach? GBNews star Darren Grimes explores that in The Outsider. But next, what is Prince Andrew's plan of action after it's decided that his civil sex case trial will go ahead? Royal author Robert Jobson reveals all in Crown Jewels in just a couple of minutes.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Darren Grimes and Rod Liddle on the way, but it's time now for Crown Jewels with royal author Robert Jobson. And breaking tonight, Prince Andrew has been plunged into further crisis after his attempt to throw out a civil sex case against him was dismissed by the judge. Virginia Giuffre is suing the Duke of York for allegedly sexually assaulting her when she was a teenager. Andrew denies all of the allegations, of course. The Prince's lawyer argued the case should be dismissed as Giuffre had waived her right to sue the Duke by signing a confidential legal settlement with the disgraced financier and Andrew's former friend, his pedo BFF, Jeffrey Epstein. Virginia's lawyer, David Boyes, said in a statement after the verdict this afternoon, Virginia is pleased that Prince Andrew's motion to dismiss has been denied and that evidence will now be taken concerning her claims against him. Lisa Bloom, a lawyer who represented several of Epstein's victims, earlier told GB News she thinks Andrew may have a lot to answer for.
Prince Andrew understands, and certainly his legal team understands, that he's in a lot of trouble now, and they are not going to have him cooperate with the FBI or make any kind of statements. But I think it's important to note that all of these technical arguments that Prince Andrew has raised, first he said he wasn't properly served with a lawsuit. Then he says it should be thrown out because of a prior agreement that he was not even a party to between Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, that the court didn't have jurisdiction. I mean, all of these arguments are now rejected.
A trial could come in the autumn, or will the poor Queen be forced to shell out millions for her favourite son to settle the case? Jobbo, I mean, this is the worst nightmare come true for Prince Andrew, but actually the entire royal family as we enter the Queen's Platinum Jubilee year. And it's looking increasingly likely that he may have to try and settle this case.
Well, Dan, I don't think there's any other option. I think that this has always been about money, not necessarily about anything else. And I think that there will be a deal, because I don't believe that this is in his interest or anybody's interest, actually, that this goes to, any further. Mainly because that's Virginia Giuffre has taken a civil action for no other reason that she wants money. Her criminal case was thrown out as the evidence was seen as flawed and insufficient, but the level of proof is actually less in a civil case. I think that the best thing for Prince Andrew to do is to settle, and that way at least the Queen can look forward to a 70th anniversary of the throne that can actually she can actually enjoy. But equally, you know, this is a very serious case. Whatever happens, there is a case of over jurisdiction, unlike what the lawyer just said there. Even if it proves that her claims are correct, he is found guilty, Andrew's found guilty, he doesn't have to pay the money because it's a question of jurisdiction. He doesn't have to do it. So the reality is, though, this stench will hang over him. If it goes through into a court case, the whole of this will be looked over forensically. He may actually end up putting himself deeper in trouble than the FBI and other organisations, and the legal system in America may turn around and say, look, we now don't just want to talk to Andrew as a witness, we want to talk to him as a possible defendant. So,
of course, which is what he's been trying to avoid. But the problem is, if he settles, Jobbo, is that there will be a stench around him that will never go away, because you will completely understand that you will have most folks saying, if you're innocent, if you have nothing to hide, why on earth are you prepared to pay this woman millions of dollars?
Simply to avoid the further damage to his reputation. But absolutely, I understand that position, and it is the right position to be looked at. But look, his reputation has been run through the mill anyway. I mean, it's not as if Virginia Giuffre has come to this case either whiter than white or actually silently. She's made at least 2 television programmes in which all these allegations have been aired in public. Andrew's only chance to actually rebuff these claims came in that terrible Newsnight interview, which actually did him more harm than good. And I'm sure his lawyers would not want him to have to go through the process now, where he has to do what could be up to a 7-hour interview, being cross-examined by US attorneys. You know, if he didn't cope that well being cross-examined by a journalist, what can we expect?
Yeah,
I mean, I think one key question here is that we do know that Prince Andrew used to have regular massages. He used to like having a massage after long flights, etc. He had a bit of a bad back. He's talked about it himself. Did he get massaged by any of Epstein's girls? Did this girl massage him? That question's never been asked. He says he has no recollection of seeing her. Yet he's in that photograph with her, with the convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. Look, I can see no... if this is about money, which ultimately a civil case is, the best thing to do for him and for the royal family is to settle. And I'm sure that is being discussed at this moment.
Well, indeed, because no one wants to think about Prince Andrew being massaged, that's for sure. No, it's a complete mess, and all I think about is the Queen. You know, the Queen, 95 years old.
Absolutely.
And, you know, how absolutely appalling what he's putting his mother through. Jobbo, Robert Jobson, the best royal reporter in the country. Thank you so much, Jobbo. Now, coming up, Should overly sensitive Gen Z toughen up and be more like their forefathers if they want a happy life? Star Daily Telegraph columnist and best-selling author Celia Wootton thinks so. She'll explain how we can save our youth from their self-inflicted misery at 10:20. But next, the wokest man in Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio, really guilt-tripped us about the environment in his Netflix climate change satire Don't Look Up.
He discovered a very large comet.
Oh, good for you. It's headed directly towards Earth.
But like most of the Green Elite, he's been exposed now as an eco-hypocrite. Darren Grimes reveals all in The Outsider straight after the break.
Hello, getting cold out there now. The sun has gone down. We'll keep largely clear skies across the south, but it will turn foggy in places, but also a frost likely across the south first thing in the morning, thanks to high pressure. Further north, notice quite a few isobars on the chart. It's been a windy day across northern Scotland. It stays windy here overnight, and that breeze will help to prevent a frost and will continue to bring quite a lot of cloud across certainly western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Elsewhere though, clear skies, and especially in the south with the light winds, turning cold here. Frost likely even in towns and cities. Will get down a touch below freezing, and a few dense fog patches, which this time of year are hard to shift, so certainly be around for the rush hour and could stick around even into the afternoon in a few locations. We'll keep thicker clouds across the northwest of Scotland, patchy rain over the Highlands, and the Western Isles stays pretty blustery in the far north as well. But elsewhere, the winds are light, and for many, a bright day with sunny spells and temperatures picking up to 7-8 degrees Celsius, maybe 10 in the southwest. Again, the highest temperatures likely over northern Scotland, 10, 11, maybe 12 in Aberdeenshire. Stays quite breezy here through the course of Thursday evening. We'll see a bit more rain heading into the Northern Isles. Again, most places dry. And again, where we've got the clear skies, we'll see that double threat of frost and fog. If anything, probably more fog as we head into Friday morning. And again, it could stick around, certainly through into the late morning, perhaps even all day in a few locations. But if you don't get the fog, you should generally have another sunny day, the main exception being that patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. Generally, temperatures a little lower on Friday, and especially if the fog sticks, we may struggle to get much above 2 or 3 Celsius. But generally, the outlook is pretty dry, some sunshine, some dense fog patches, and particularly in the south, frosty conditions in the mornings. Bye for now.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Celia Wootton and Rod Liddle on the way, but Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. Leonardo DiCaprio's climate catastrophe film Don't Look Up has become Netflix's second biggest movie of all time. The patronising doomsday satire uses a planet-destroying comet to address the climate crisis, as if we need the issue shoved down our throats just a little bit more. Think again. He's faced a huge backlash and been branded an eco-hypocrite after being photographed on a super yacht in St. Bart's, the type which is said to produce as much carbon from sailing just 7 miles as the average car produces in a year. Darren, look, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's actually my favourite actor. I think he's a brilliant actor, but I have to call out this sort of eco-hypocrisy because it's just so wrong. Why can he preach to us and then go and do whatever the hell he pleases?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? We're told by these celebrities that basically you're either nothing more than a human vector of the virus, or it'd be too much to ask for these people to set an example themselves, and the rest of us could potentially follow them should we choose to do so. But as you say, 315 foot, 110 million super yacht that just spews out CO2 like you wouldn't believe. And this is the man who said in his Oscar ceremony speech back in 2016 that climate change is the most urgent threat facing our species and that we've all got to work collectively and stop procrastinating. Well, Dan, I don't know about you, but it looked to me like he was doing an awful lot of procrastinating whilst on that sun deck there.
Indeed. So it's very much a case of do as I preach, not as I do.
Exactly, yes. So, you know, talking about reducing carbon emissions whilst you're on a super yacht and all the rest of it, this is just another one to add to the list, though, of eco-hypocrites. We had Dame Emma Thompson, remember? She flew over in first class to join the Extinction Rebellion protest. Exactly. There is such a long list that we could pick out here.
I mean, Ricky Gervais is right, isn't he, Darren, when he says, why don't these celebrities just shut up and do the films, do the acting, rather than telling us how to live, and then we wouldn't have to criticise them for the way they live.
You know, if you are going to tell us how to live, at least live like that yourself, right? That's the I guess the reason why we're all so flabbergasted by all of this. So ultimately, he has just exposed himself to be yet another eco-hypocrite that wants us to be colder and poorer, but not himself down.
Brilliant acting, Leo, because you're so good at that, and stop the preaching, and then you can go on as many private super yachts as you want. Darren Grimes, thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Coming up, as the push to get Boris Johnson out of Downing Street is dubbed Revenge of the Ramonas, and even staunch Brexiteers like William Ragg are urging him to resign. Do we need the PM to stay put and ensure Brexit isn't sabotaged? My superstar panel will get into that next and reveal who they think should and will be the next PM if Boris jumps or is pushed. Plus, where is the anger towards the pampered civil servants behind that fateful party invite? Rod Liddle has had enough of Westminster bureaucrats thinking they're untouchable. He sounds off in Uncancelled at 10:40. Should overly sensitive Gen Z suck it up and be more like those before them if they want true happiness? Well, the Daily Telegraph star columnist and best-selling author Celia Wootton has written a fascinating argument on this. She'll be here at 10:20. And as experts say the UK is closer than any country in the Northern Hemisphere to end the pandemic, did we get it right all along? We'll break down the news of that lockdown-loving France and the lockdown hysterics who wanted us all under house arrest, so they don't want to hear it, do they? That's in the media buzz. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and crown a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Have a feeling there's probably only one contender for the Jackass tonight. Anyway, we'll see who the superstar panel nominates. First, though, the news at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks, Dan. The top stories this hour. Prince Andrew is now facing a civil sex abuse trial after a US judge today dismissed a motion by his lawyers to have the case thrown out. The Duke of York's legal team argued Virginia Giuffre relinquished her rights to sue anyone when she signed an agreement with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2009. Miss Giuffre claims she was sexually assaulted by the prince when she was 17. He denies any wrongdoing. Lisa Bloom, a lawyer who represents victims of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, says she doesn't expect the case to be settled out of court.
All of these technical arguments that Prince Andrew has raised. First, he said he wasn't properly served with a lawsuit. Then he says it should be thrown out because of a prior agreement that he was not even a party to between Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, that the court didn't have jurisdiction. I mean, all of these arguments are now rejected. I don't see Virginia accepting anything other than an admission that this happened and an apology to her and payment of a significant amount of compensation. And I just don't see him doing that. So I think he's going to continue to fight the case.
Lisa Bloom. Here, the Prime Minister is under pressure to resign after admitting he attended a drinks party during the first lockdown. Boris Johnson apologised and took full responsibility for the event, which was held in the Downing Street garden. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, other opposition leaders and a number of Conservative MPs say Boris Johnson's position is now untenable. He says he believed it was a work do.
With hindsight, I should have sent everyone back inside. I should have found some other way to thank them. And I should have recognised that even if it could be said technically to fall within the guidance, there would be millions and millions of people who simply would not see it that way.
After months of deceit and deception, the pathetic spectacle of a man who's run out of road. His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public.
Sir Keir Starmer in the Commons today. A Met police officer accused of a series of sex offences has appeared in court to face a further 9 charges. David Carrick now faces 29 allegations, including 13 counts of rape against 8 women. He'll next appear at St Albans Crown Court in just over 2 weeks' time. The rollout of smart motorways in England has been suspended over safety concerns. The Department for Transport says it follows several fatal crashes on the hard shoulder. New smart motorways are being put on hold for at least 5 years. On your radio via DAB+, on TV and online, this is GB News.
Tomorrow's news tonight, now on our Media Buzz. Let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages hot off the press. And I'm actually going to start today with a magazine, which we don't usually do, but it's the magazine that Boris Johnson used to edit, of course, The Spectator, very influential within the Tory party. And it leads with the minimalist question, actually, is it over? It's a former publication asking the unthinkable about the former darling of the right, and quite an illustration that, isn't it? In the eye, some Tory MPs, including the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Douglas Ross, have called on Boris to resign. In order to trigger a leadership contest, 54 MPs need to submit letters of no confidence. And Prince Andrew, of course, has failed to have the sexual abuse case against him thrown out. The Metro, similar front page, leaning on Boris there with the headline, "Sorry, not sorry," a swipe at his apology today for the fact that he claimed it was a work event, and obviously Prince Andrew there too. But Boris dominates, perhaps unsurprisingly, the front page of the left-wing Independent. Their headline is taken from the words of the Labour Party, calling the Prime Minister a man without shame. My superstar panel are back with me now. They're all a little bit shameless too, let's be completely honest. The Daily Mail columnist, Amanda Platel. Hopefully hasn't been downing that cheap Tesco wine in the break.
Not cheap.
Not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's about 12 quid a bottle.
Yeah, and we left you a glass, so don't worry.
OK, good. I need a glass after the show. The broadcaster Neil Fox and the political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. Now, as you just saw, Boris Johnson is facing blistering attacks from all sides over Downing Street Partygate. But is there more at play here than COVID rule breaking? Could there be a whiff of Ramona revenge? So today, you know, the PM finally apologised for attending that boozy party during the first lockdown after consistently denying any knowledge of such events. And despite his apology, PMQs was dominated by furious calls for his resignation.
Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
Will the Prime Minister finally do the decent thing and resign, or will his Tory MPs be forced to show him the door?
So, for once, can the Prime Minister do the honourable thing and resign for the sake of the public health message and for standards in our democracy?
And the best thing he can do now is go resign, Prime Minister. And he must resign.
So will the Prime Minister, for the good of the country, accept that the party is over and decide to resign?
So I'm just laughing at the concept of Ian Blackford or Ed Davey as Prime Minister. Look, Boris, we know he's undoubtedly in the wrong here, but some are arguing that opposition politicians have been looking for an error to hang on Boris since we left the EU. The political and media establishment have campaigned against him from the moment he replaced Theresa May. They blame him for Brexit and have always wanted to do everything possible to derail the biggest democratic mandate in the history of British politics. So, as the Partygate cover-up compounds the perilous state of his leadership tonight, is Brexit under threat if Boris is deposed as PM by his party? And if Boris Johnson doesn't make it to the next election, who will replace him and who should? So, look, we'll discuss that in a second. But Neil, you are obviously a Brexiteer. You supported leaving the EU. Do you feel like Brexit, or at least the delivery of Brexit, or the legacy of Brexit is under threat now that Boris Johnson is under pressure to go?
Well, I have to say, I did not vote to leave.
Oh, did you not?
I voted to remain.
Oh,
but
you
no,
did
no, I
not.
voted to remain. But once we got ourselves into this...
I got that completely wrong.
I just thought I'd replace that. But once we'd voted...
That's right, sorry, no, that's right, I remember that.
OK, we had
Sorry,
to vote,
no, I got it wrong.
to leave.
And yes, exactly. And so, after the democratic decision, you then campaigned because you were angry that the folk were trying to stop.
It had just taken so long, we were dithering...
I knew we discussed Brexit in some way.
Last time we were in, we had a chat. But, so once we decided to go, we have to go, right? That was the vote. Right, let's not moan about it. We have to get on with it and make the best of what that situation is right now. Who knows what may happen in the future, I'm not saying. But for right now, we've got Brexit and Boris got us through that election and got us through Brexit. If he goes, we are now out of Europe. OK, that's happened. So I don't think we have to put the two together. If someone else came in, their job would be to continue what's happened. People voted to get us out. We're out. So now we have to make the best of it. And that's the situation in my head. And we just have to crack on with it now.
Amanda, do you have any worries about the revenge of the Ramonas?
No, I don't whatsoever. The dice cast, I completely agree. It's really bad when we agree on that. Sofa, isn't it? I completely agree with you.
Wow.
There's I think that perhaps over European Court of Human Rights might be one of the little fiddly bits that hasn't been resolved yet. I hope we get out of that. Oh, let's not talk about Northern Ireland. God, life's too short.
It's a very important issue about a very important place.
Unless you live in Northern Ireland.
It is incredibly important. You know that woman who's running the inquiry into Boris's
Sue Gray,
affairs? Yeah. She used to run a pub in Northern Ireland.
Did she?
That's my knowledge about.
Well, she then certainly knows how to throw a party. I mean, I mean, look.
Throw a party to the wolves.
Oh, maybe. Daisy, look, you hope Brexit is safe. Now, of course you do. But it does feel like there is a little bit of a sense of revenge amongst Theresa May and the people who backed Theresa May, because obviously Boris was very instrumental in her downfall.
I don't think that if Boris goes, Brexit goes, partly for the very factual reason that Brexit's here to stay, but also I don't think that if we are in a situation where, to go back to where the tail is wagging the dog, that tail that's wagging isn't a Ramona tail, it's a Dominic Cummings tail. It's a tale of people thinking Boris was useful while he could be, but now he's toxic, he's unpopular, he's lost his shine, let's get rid of him. They're not going to replace him.
And he's never been popular within the parliamentary party. So look, I know Boris hasn't gone yet, and as I said at the top of the show, there is a chance he can turn this around. But I just want to look forward and let's assume that either there is a confidence vote and he loses, or that this inquiry by Gray is so catastrophic that he has to resign. So, Amanda, let me start with you. Firstly, who do you think will be the next Prime Minister and who do you think should be? Because obviously they're completely different things.
There's going to be, look, no one knows. There's going to be a tussle. It's going to be Liz Truss, but she's so nakedly ambitious, it's obnoxious. You've got...
Oh, I like her.
Oh, you might like her. You've got... I know, Daisy, you like Rishi, but I did a bit of research today and we've never had a Prime Minister that short.
He's a little man.
I'm making a serious point here.
He would be a pint-sized Prime Minister.
He is. I'm reading my notes here. He is 5'6" in his Cuban stacked.
Yes,
Tom Cruise here.
I'm sorry, you can't be heightist, Amanda.
I'm sorry, you can be. Well, I'm just looking at who's most likely. OK, so you want me to know I think they're the big contenders.
Yeah, but who do you want?
Do you know who I'd really like? And this is I would like Kwasi Kwarteng. Now, I've got to start to learn to say his name properly.
No, he was a good Brexiteer.
He's absolutely perfect. He was the secretary, he was one of the ministers for Brexit. He was promoted in Boris's last cabinet up to, what's he doing now?
Business secretary.
No.
Business,
yeah. OK, you can get all that
He's
right.
dealing with the energy companies mainly at the moment.
And the incredible thing is that he is a Ghanaian of legal immigrants.
Yes.
Which is another big
good.
tick.
Good thought, and we'll see if he runs. Neil.
Gorgeous black guy.
No.
And he's so hot.
OK, again, that doesn't matter. Amanda is on heat tonight. It's all about the looks tonight. Thank goodness you're talking about men, because, you know, you can't say those things about women anymore, can you? Neil, who do you think should be the next Prime Minister? Who do you think will be?
I think Rishi would make a really interesting Prime Minister because so far he seems to be quite cool, level-headed. He doesn't seem to have too much bull in him. So far we've seen him give pretty straight.
OK, and who do you think will be?
Well, no, I think he will be. No, I think he will be. I think, and this.
You think Rishi's has got it?
Yeah, I think the one that will be an interesting choice. Please hear me out on this one. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if Theresa May came back. No. I say that because what's weird about politics is when people have been PM,
we like her now.
Cock up.
We like her now.
When they come back, they talk sense.
No, that's fine. I thought you were going to say Michael Gove. As long as it's not Michael Gove, I'm OK.
No, I think we're all
Don't even go there. Daisy,
design.
who should be the next Prime Minister if Boris goes, and who will be?
So the who will be? I mean, Rishi's definitely the favourite, but we all know we're long in the tooth. Favourites never win.
Exactly.
They never
Especially
win.
in the
It's
Tory
always
party.
somebody who comes out of left
Although
field
Boris
or
was the favourite.
Although Boris was favourite, but circumstances were a bit different. There is a little bit of me, and Neil's going to hate this, I would love to see Gove in that job, just to see...
Oh, for God's sake!
Because I'd love to see what
you
he
crazy?
would do with it.
No,
I think he's such an interesting intellectual person. I mean, he would be unpopular and he would never get it, but I would love to see it, almost
Daisy,
like a
you are only saying that
experiment.
As a Liberal, because you want the Tory parties to be in exile for another decade.
No, the one I would really
Admit
like...
it. Michael Gove would be death.
The one I would vote for would be Ruth Davidson.
Yeah, she doesn't want it, but she would be very good.
I know she doesn't want it, but I don't care.
She would be very good. Fascinating insight. No, I love those predictions, actually. But look, I want to move on to something really disturbing, actually, because if you think our hotel quarantine is bad, just have a look at the hellish situation going on right now in communist China as it attempts to totally eradicate COVID, which is completely ironic given they unleashed the thing on us in the first place. So sprawling quarantine camps have popped up across the country with rows upon rows of cramped metal boxes to house people suspected of having COVID-19. In eerily dystopian footage shared online, Staff can be seen fully decked out in protective clothing, leaving trays of food on shelves outside the cramped prefab units. And take a look what happens when you get inside.
This is quarantine. Here is a toilet as soon as you enter. They gave us 2 boxes of mineral water, a bed, and a table for eating. This is where we sleep. 5,010 yen or $773 for 21 days isolation. 5,010 yen, which includes food and accommodation.
It makes Novak Djokovic's refugee hotel in Melbourne look like a Hilton. Now, look, there are a total of 20 million people confined to their homes in China at the moment under quarantine, banned from going outside at all, even to buy food. And that is despite the country only recording 157 new cases nationwide. This is the stuff of nightmares, folks. I mean, zero COVID cannot work, and it should not work. And while I hate the CCP in every way, I'm so furious with what they put us through. My God, I feel for the people of China, because that is madness. And wait till Omicron starts letting loose. I'll have to have a hell of a lot more prefabs, that's for sure. Now, stand by. Amanda Platel, Neil Fox, Daisy McAndrew, they're back soon. But coming up, as experts say the UK is closing in on the end of the pandemic, is Boris Johnson vindicated for holding firm on Omicron? We'll bring you that as the media buzz continues, and more of the front pages. I'm sure it's not going to be pretty for Boris Johnson. But next, has Gen Z's obsessions with their feelings left them constantly miserable? Daily Telegraph star columnist and best-selling author Celia Wootton has a message for young adults. Your parents and grandparents were right. She's here after the break. Can't wait.
Hello, getting cold out there now. The sun has gone down. We'll keep largely clear skies across the south, but it will turn foggy in places, but also a frost likely across the south first thing in the morning, thanks to high pressure. Further north, notice quite a few isobars on the chart. It's been a windy day across northern Scotland. It stays windy here overnight, and that breeze will help to prevent a frost and will continue to bring quite a lot of cloud across certainly western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Elsewhere though, clear skies, and especially in the south with the light winds turning cold here. Frost likely even in towns and cities. We'll get down a touch below freezing, and a few dense fog patches, which this time of year are hard to shift, so certainly be around for the rush hour and could stick around even into the afternoon in a few locations. We'll keep thicker clouds across the northwest of Scotland, patchy rain over the Highlands, and the Western Isles stays pretty blustery in the far north as well. But elsewhere, the winds are light, and for many, a bright day with sunny spells and temperatures picking up to 7-8 degrees Celsius, maybe 10 in the southwest. Again, the highest temperatures likely over northern Scotland, 10, 11, maybe 12 in Aberdeenshire. Stays quite breezy here through the course of Thursday evening. We'll see a bit more rain heading into the Northern Isles. Again, most places dry. And again, where we've got the clear skies, we'll see that double threat of frost and fog. If anything, probably more fog as we head into Friday morning. And again, it could stick around, certainly through into the late morning, perhaps even all day in a few locations. But if you don't get the fog, you should generally have another sunny day, the main exception being that patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. Generally, temperatures a little lower on Friday, and especially if the fog sticks, we may struggle to get much above 2 or 3 Celsius. But generally, the outlook is pretty dry. Some sunshine, some dense fog patches, and particularly in the south, frosty conditions in the mornings. Bye for now.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Rod Liddle on the way, and we'll reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, if the tiresome Meghan and Harry get their way, and you know they usually do, their firstborn Archie will soon walk away with top grades in the wokest classes ever from a US nursery. The 2-year-old is reportedly having lessons on emotional literacy, mindfulness, and how to be kind after the Sussexes snubbed the favoured school for families in their neighbourhood of Montecito, California, for a new age alternative, apparently. What happened to just teaching the ABCs? And for that matter, when did we decide that wrapping kids in cotton wool at a younger and younger age would suitably prepare them for the harsh realities of the world? Well, the Daily Telegraph's brilliant style columnist Celia Walden, who's also the author of the best-selling book Payday, worries the young adults in Gen Z have damned themselves to a life of misery and constant feelings of inferiority as a result of fetishizing feelings. She writes, being in touch with your emotions is one thing, being hijacked by them 24/7 is quite another. We know this thanks to the millennials and Gen Zers who have fetishized emotion to the point that they will speak in therapies, Kleenex box at the ready, and enjoy nothing more than routinely diagnosing themselves. And her message to Gen Z is this: get up, get over it, and accept maybe your parents and grandparents had the right idea with their stiff upper lip attitude. Celia, great to see you. It was such a brilliant column. And it's so true, isn't it? Because you write about the fact that actually we've lost that whole sense of, you know, your mum or your grandma or your auntie, whoever it was, saying, you know, it's going to be okay tomorrow. Just go to sleep, wake up, and things will feel better. We don't do that anymore. We have to talk about everything all the time.
And not only do we not do that, but that's considered a cardinal sin, isn't it? You've got to really kind of luxuriate in whatever momentary pain you're suffering. And the fact is, think about how many feelings we all have from, I mean, how many feelings have you had in the past hour, ranging from kind of frustration
You don't want to know. You don't want to know, to be honest.
I don't. But it's but what's convenient with feelings for a generation Z or millennials even is that it cordons off discussion, because just by saying, well, no, I feel upset, that's the end of, nobody can get, there's a kind of force field of feelings around that, and however irrational that feeling may be, we've all got to just bow down and respect it. So not only is it not making them happier, but it's convenient because it means it stops discussion completely dead.
And I mean, come on, teaching a 2-year-old mindfulness, all I would say is that young child is going to grow up messed up.
Well, I think there are certain things children just do not need to be taught, or that they can glean, hopefully, from the world around them or from their parents. But the idea, I mean, this is not just in LA, by the way. Yes, this is going on, obviously, more in the sort of primary schools across LA and California in general. But there's a lot of it going on here. And in fact, emotional thermometers are actually a thing where children are being asked, they're being considered as a sort of valuable tool. And children as young as 2 will be asked, you know, with a color-coded smiley or sort of frowning faces, how are you feeling at this precise moment? I mean, forgive me for suggesting this, but I don't think a 2-year-old really has a sort of a very, very profound, ability to, I mean, it's going to range from give me back the tractor to no, I don't like peas, isn't it? So,
unless you're Archie Mountbatten, maybe. But it is true, isn't it? It feels like in this day and age, we have to diagnose everything.
Yeah.
So, as you point out, we say, oh, our friend is OCD, or I work with this person who's a little bit autistic. We've just become very used to needing to put medical conditions on a lot of things which actually are just personality traits and are just part of living a full life where you come into contact with people who are a little bit different, sometimes a little bit odd, but there's not necessarily anything wrong with them.
What are you saying, Dan? No, but I think it's true. We've pathologized life, haven't we? Yeah. And actually, none of this would matter, if it were making them happier, or if it were making them more tolerant and more empathetic, which we know is not the case. So on every level, this is failing, isn't it? They laugh at us who for being sort of hopelessly old school and suggesting everything will look a bit different in the morning. But I genuinely think that when I think back to my 20s, I had a great time. I would not want to be a 20-year-old now for anything in the world, because it just looked like such hard work.
And you did a bit of research on this, Celia, and actually found experts who say that on the whole, young people today are much more unhappy because of this constant sharing culture.
That's right. There's a fantastic Irish psychotherapist called Stella O'Malley that I interviewed a few years ago. She wrote a wonderful book called Fragile, about how this fragility, or supposed fragility, was not making youngsters any happier. Quite the opposite. But she said what was interesting, and I'll always remember, because she goes around schools and she talks to youngsters, and she said if you heard how strong they are at defending their fragility, you would be amazed. But she, and her argument is the same. She said, look, I'm not, as a psychotherapist, she's not interested in sneering at people at all. She's just worried that it's not going to make them happier in later life, that fragility. And that speaking in sort of emotive speak constantly means that you're actually not using the most intelligent part of your brain, because your emotional brain is famously the most stupid part of your brain.
No, indeed. And I actually think it also leads to a very concerning issue, which is that we're medicating a lot of folk simply because they're sad. And actually, sometimes we need to embrace sadness. If you break up from your husband or wife, or someone very important to you passes away, that's normal to be sad. And we know these days that you can essentially go to a GP and very quickly be prescribed with antidepressants. And I actually think it belittles genuine mental health issues, which obviously do need to be medicated. And actually, it plays into that whole idea that sometimes we have to feel our emotions and just accept that we are going to go through a rocky road in life.
Yes, agreed. And I think that also the other sort of strange paradox is this thing of offence that supposedly, they can never, ever feel because it's too much for them. And yet, ironically, the whole rationale behind the feeling sort of fetishism is that it's important to feel. So in that case, why is offence any different? Why can't you allow yourself to feel offence right down to the tips of your toes, and then look, you're still alive, everything's still fine, and it didn't kill you?
Yes, very true. Very true. Now, Celia, you're a big author now. Tell me about the book. We'll take another look at it. Payday.
Look at that cover. I want whoever's threading her eyebrows, I want to know who it is. That's all I'm saying.
And what's it about?
Three women at a leaving do in London all hate their boss, and they share secrets. They get very drunk. They share secrets at this leaving do, and they decide that he needs to be brought down. It's not much of a spoiler because it's on page 1, but let's just say he ends up impaled on a railing, and we're not quite sure who did it.
OK, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. Do you want it to become a TV series? Because that sounds to me a little bit like, you know, that HBO series, Big Little Lies.
Oh, yes. Well, in fact, I am currently in talks with someone on the LA side. So, well, I would love that, definitely.
Amazing. Well, keep us posted. Celia Walden, thank you so much. Great to have you on the show. And it was an absolutely brilliant column. That is Celia Walden, star columnist at the Daily Telegraph. Coming up, where is the anger over the pampered civil services role in Partygate? Well, Rod Liddle says the blob should be taking more blame, and he'll explain why at 10:40. But next, as lockdown-loving European nations struggle with Omicron, does Boris deserve some much-needed kudos? Because he certainly hasn't had any today for bringing the UK closer to the end of the pandemic. I'll get my superstar panel's verdict in the media buzz, plus more of the newspaper front pages too. See you in a few.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. The front pages have just been delivered. As you would imagine, they make terrible reading for Boris Johnson. And we know the Prime Minister is obsessed with Churchill, but he might not appreciate being compared to another wartime figure, Lord Kitchener, by the Daily Star. The mock poster reads, "Rules are only for you, the little people." The Guardian write that Boris Johnson's future is on a knife edge, with senior Tories urging him to resign. However, some cabinet ministers later tweeted their support for the Prime Minister. Check this one out. I mean, this is essentially the Sturgeon newspapers. It's hardly a surprise, is it? But the National aren't pulling any punches. There's what they think of him. And they say, Boris Johnson thinks you are an idiot. The Daily Express, so we've gone from the paper that hates Boris to the paper that really loves him, says, "Prove you can deliver for Britain, Boris." Cabinet ministers rallied around the Prime Minister last night, encouraging him to carry on leading the country and deliver on the people's priority. It's Operation Save Boris, according to the Daily Mail. The paper reports that the PM mobilised the Cabinet this evening, trying to put down a Tory mutiny over the Partygate scandal, but only received lukewarm support from his Chancellor, who, along with Liz Truss, is said to be manoeuvring to succeed him. And Daily Mail columnist Richard Kay asks, as he faces sex trial in US, will the Duke now do the right thing for the Queen, even if it trashes what's left of his reputation? The Daily Telegraph sticks with the theme of Rishi Sunak leaving the Prime Minister in limbo.
That's, of course, after the Chancellor issued what they described as a carefully worded and lukewarm statement in which he said the PM was right to apologise but fell short of the public support shown by others in the Cabinet. Now, we know Sunak didn't even bother to turn up to PMQs today, but he was on a visit somewhere else in the country. More on the media buzz now. Yeah, indeed. More on the media buzz now with my superstar panel. The Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel is here. So too is radio royalty Neil Fox and the political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. So as we just saw, absolutely no mistaking, this has been a disastrous day politically for Boris Johnson. But it's a shame in a way, you know, because today he was vindicated for holding firm in the face of Omicron and refusing to bow to hysterical scientists by introducing new restrictions before Christmas, as most of Europe did. Well, official data confirmed that cases in the UK have fallen for a 7th straight day and hospital admissions are plateauing. Other nations on the continent have not been so successful. Despite locking down in mid-December, the Netherlands yesterday set a new record for COVID cases with over 201,000 people testing positive in the space of a week. And remember, they were in a full lockdown, right, in Netherlands. It's total lockdown. Also yesterday, France, and I mean, you know Macron's doing crazy stuff there. They reached an all-time high of more than 368,000 cases. That's even though Macron, you know, closed nightclubs, mandated face masks outdoors in Paris, but still, it hasn't stopped the spread. And in the wake of the stats, Professor David Heyman at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has praised the handling of the virus at home and insisted the end is in sight. He said the UK is the closest to any country of being out of the pandemic if it isn't already out of the pandemic and having the disease as endemic as the other 4 coronaviruses. So, I mean, look, this is completely fascinating, Amanda Platel, because I have said right from day one, yes, our strategy would cause more excess deaths in the early phase, but long term, it's the right one. And that is proving to be the case.
It is. And I think in the context of the whole, you know, the papers you just read out about Boris Johnson, is sure, he held a party, maybe he held 5 parties. But
probably.
And through some of the mishaps with PPE in the beginning and all the rest of it, he has had the most successful vaccination rollout in the whole of Europe, and we're coming out of it better. And I just think that the British people have lost their appetite for any more rules. I certainly will not be abiding by anything.
Never.
Except for getting into the cab on the way here, when they make me wear a mask, which wrecks my lipstick.
I know, it's infuriating.
Yeah, stop that, Dan. Change that, please, or I'm never coming in again.
Neil Fox, do you think that we can say the strategy now, when you look at it in totality, was the right one?
Well, look, obviously, for anyone that lost anyone, it becomes a very emotional subject, this. But if you take slightly that out of the equation...
Because it's over 150,000.
Exactly. You know, it's a huge number. But whether that number would have changed if we had done things differently, who knows? I do think we are coming out of this now. It feels like it's becoming something more like a cold or flu, certainly the Omicron, that we can live with. We live with that every year, with flu and colds. We just get on with it. We use our common sense. We cover our face if we don't feel so good, or maybe we don't go out. And I think that's maybe where we're getting to now, why we're coming out of it. A lot of common sense must prevail. I'm sure things have been done potentially wrong or could have been done better, but we are where we are, and it looks like we're doing good. The rollout of the vaccine was incredible,
and
I have
Daisy,
to say.
I think every country made mistakes. Of course they did.
They did.
Yeah.
But actually, if you had listened to the Labour Party, if you had listened to Whitty and Vallance and Ferguson, we would be locked down right now. And we know now, and they even admit now, Michael Gove admitted it this week because he's one of the lockdown hysterics within the cabinet. They were wrong. We didn't lock down, and we're actually coping better because we didn't lock down.
I think I do totally agree that there's something to be said. And also, of course, this, you know, we now know, which a lot of people suspected for a long time, that this variant is much milder, and therefore we can cope with it. One of the problems is that there is still so much fear about. And as Neil said, some of that fear is because people have first-hand experienced losses, you know, or people they know.
Yeah, but some of it is because of the government.
And some of it is because of what people have been telling them. I mean, I'm quite forgiving on that because I don't believe it's a conspiracy that's all about... I know you're not.
I don't believe it's a conspiracy, but I do not forgive them for the fear that they spread at the time when they were socialising themselves and clearly not fearful of the virus, even back in May 2020.
I'm not forgiving of one rule for us and another for you.
But why are you forgiving of such a propaganda campaign? Why are you forgiving of that?
Of the fact that people were frightened, and I'm forgiving of the fact that politicians didn't want to kill lots of people. I mean, that's basically how they felt.
Isn't there something slightly more that you just touched on, Daisy, and that you touched on, Dan, before, is did they actually know something that we didn't know? Were they applying different rules to us when they knew that they...
Well, when they had parties?
When they had parties. Did they believe they were safe and yet were imposing a different set of rules upon us? That's the really sinister thing.
It was only a few weeks before that party that Boris Johnson nearly died. So they can't have thought they were all safe because they had seen their leader nearly die.
Look, we don't discuss this, do we?
I mean,
because it's not the PC thing to discuss. But Boris Johnson nearly died because of his age and his weight, and also because the Wuhan variant at that point was... very, very severe, because I got it at exactly the same time as Boris Johnson, and it was much more severe. You know, I've had Omicron, it's a pussycat.
No, exactly, but Amanda was talking about the May 2020 party.
I know, but that's why Boris Johnson nearly died, and we don't talk about that enough. The reasons why people are at risk.
And you're absolutely right. Every intensive care doctor now is saying quite flatly, 90% of my patients are obese or morbidly obese.
And unvaccinated.
And a high percentage...
Of course, but at this point there were no vaccines.
Yeah, I know.
There were no vaccines to factor in. But look, I've got to show you this because it really made me laugh earlier today. As the Novak Djokovic story rumbles on in Australia, Channel 7, it's a big channel out there, newsreaders Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor, presented yesterday's 6 o'clock news in Melbourne. Now, take a look at their very polished routine as they went to air.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Madden.
Good evening. Novak Djokovic is facing new questions and a border force investigation.
Very professional there. But take a look at what they were saying just a few minutes beforehand.
Whatever way you look at it, Novak Djokovic is a lying, sneaky... Like, whatever way you look at it, it's unfortunate that everybody else stuffed up around him.
That's it.
I
think most fair-minded people would say, look, the bloke's an Did they do the right thing by him? I don't know.
No.
And let me tell you, that's why we're different here at GB News. In all seriousness, we don't say one thing behind the scenes and then come and tell you something completely different on air. We tell you what we genuinely think. Right, although there, but for the grace of God. Amanda Patel,
without the expletives.
Yeah, without the expletives.
And Dan, that was edited because any Australian, the expletives would be much more.
It would just be one big beep.
It would just be one beep.
Coming up, will my panel show embattled Djokovic some love as they nominate tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jack? I'll crown the winners before the end of the show. But next, where is the anger towards the pampered civil servants behind that fateful party invite? Rod Liddell has had enough of Westminster bureaucrats thinking they're untouchable. He'll sound off in Uncancelled in just a few seconds. First, though, here's what's coming up on tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight. Has the BBC gone so woke it risks driving away its formerly loyal staff? Radio 4 presenter Nigel Rees, who quit the corporation after 46 years due to its political correctness, is finally free of the shackles of Auntie and telling all. Why is Mark Drakeford getting away with continuing to force the UK's most extreme COVID restrictions on the Welsh people? Political commentator Richard Taylor takes a stand for his home nation. Plus, iconic US journalist Megyn Kelly gives the stateside view on some of the week's biggest headlines. GB News host Mark Dolan is let loose, and I break down some of the stories of the day with my superstar panel. The Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, the hospitality champion and social media sensation Adam Brooks, and the journalist and author Amy Nicol. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
And it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Boris has to go. That's not me saying that, but it's a clear message from my guest tonight, columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddell. But as he points out, it wasn't the PM who organised these parties. It was pampered civil servants giddy at the prospect of bringing your own booze to an illicit sunshine get-together. Are we surprised that the so-called blob believes they are better than everyone else when they take more than their fair share of everything from salaries to public holidays? And I'm delighted that Rod's here now to give the civil service a reality check and remind us where our frustrations maybe should be directed, Rod. So look, I mean, I'm not saying that you haven't criticised Boris Johnson today, because you certainly have, but you're also very angry about the civil service role in this.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you know, Dan, I think Boris Johnson should go. I think he should resign. I think he's lost any vestige of moral authority. And the worst of all for Boris Johnson is that he's miles and miles behind in the polls. And the only point of Boris Johnson was to be high in the polls. That's the only reason he's the leader of the Conservative Party. But we ought to remember as well who it was who invited those people to that party, which he said he didn't go to and then decided he did go to. It was, of course, a civil servant. And it was primarily civil servants who attended the party. And it just shows up rather perfectly, this divide we have in our country at the moment between the private sector and the public sector. And particularly the most affluent parts of the public sector, which is the civil service, and particularly the Westminster civil service. They genuinely do think they live in a different world to the rest of us. And when you look at sort of earnings and what's happened to them during lockdown and during the pandemic, then you can understand why they do think that things are different for them. They have begun to earn more as a consequence of lockdowns and the pandemic, whereas private sector people have earned less. There are more jobs in the public sector as a consequence of the last 2 years, whereas there are fewer jobs in the private sector. And if you look at the general state of play in terms of wages, they earn 13% more than people in the private sector. They work fewer days a week. They work fewer hours a week. They take more days in sick pay. They have longer holidays and they get bigger pensions. And that gap between the private and the public sector has been growing and growing and growing. And nothing has made it more stark than lockdown and the pandemic. Because if you look at all the voices which are urging people not to remove restrictions, that we should still be masked up, working from home and not doing a minute's work, it is the public sector and the civil service. All the way through, every voice in favour of not doing any work comes from the public sector. And the reason for that is very straightforward, very obvious. They don't face the same commercial pressures that people in the private sector do face. They don't have to go to work and at the risk of losing their job because their company will close, because, of course, they work for the public sector. And this is the whole problem, and it's exemplified perfectly by this party.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. They're not going to lose their job, Rod. They're not even going to lose any of their salary. And I know you do too, but I speak to people even now, Rod, every single day who are struggling to survive, who are struggling to put food on the table because of these restrictions. And I know we differ about whether the restrictions are necessary or not, because I would say they weren't even necessary then. But it's why we need to trust the civil service, that they are only pushing for these restrictions when they are really necessary. And I think that party calls that into question, if I'm honest.
I think it does. And I think there's a more fundamental point as well. I wrote about the divide between the public sector and the private sector about a year ago and predicted that when we began to emerge from this pandemic, they wouldn't wish to emerge from it particularly, and they would wish to retain all the privileges which they had gained through the pandemic. And yet it's worse than that, because in because it is the mindset that in demanding that there should be more restrictions, that people shouldn't be going back to work, that the teachers shouldn't be going back, or if the teachers do go back, it should be part-time, and so on and so on. It puts forward their view of the world, which is that all this stuff can be done and nobody to pay for it. That actually none of us need to go to work, that we don't actually need to earn anything for ourselves. We don't need to make things for the country. We don't need to go to work to create the services which provide the money which pays for the public sector. They have somehow got it into their heads that this is a kind of fairy tale existence where people could be perpetually paid very high wages and very high pensions with very large holidays for no work being done whatsoever. And that is a real problem once we emerge from this pandemic.
I think it is. But Rod, they're happy as long as they've got their Peloton bikes and, you know, they can sit in their pants watching Loose Women all day, clocking onto their email for half an hour. I mean, it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. But anyway, Rod, you've written much more about this in tomorrow's edition of The Spectator magazine, and it really is a must-read. Thank you, Rod. We'll speak. Oh, there's the front page, or cover. Cover, as they say in the magazine world. Is it over? Well, that picture certainly illustrates that The Spectator might think it is. Rod, thank you so much. We'll speak again next week. Time now, though, to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. And my superstar panel is back with me. Daisy McAndrew, let me kick off with you. Who is your nomination for Greatest Britain?
My nomination for Greatest Britain this week is Zayn Malik.
From One Direction.
From One Direction, the pop star.
Why, though?
Because today it's been reported that he has recently joined a dating site which is specifically for men like Zayn to meet the larger lady.
Oh, plus size.
And I think this is fantastic. Zayn is flying the flag for those non-skinny of us, because he knows that big-bottomed girls make the world go round. And I think that, therefore, Zayn is my Greatest Britain of the day.
Well, let's just wait to see if he actually ends up with a big-bottomed girl, as you put it, because that little Gigi he was with, I mean, she's teeny tiny.
Exactly.
But anyway.
He's seen the error of his ways.
Neil, your Greatest Britain nomination?
For me, it has to be the Queen, especially what happened in the last year with losing her husband, with everything that's gone on between Harry and Meghan and the problems.
I know, now she's having to deal with all of this stuff with
Andrew as well. I mean, she has never put a foot wrong. She's amazing. She is the Greatest Britain.
Amanda Platel, your nomination has got my head spinning, but go on, explain.
Mine is Sir Keir Starmer.
Why?
After his performance in Prime Minister's Questions today, when he failed to skewer the Prime Minister, he is like a human trouser press. And as long as he's leading the party, the Tories have a long future ahead.
Because you thought he could have done much better today.
Look, he should have asked, was his wife there? How many drinks did he have? You know, all those facts. Instead, he had a pre-prepared dialogue which just fell completely flat.
OK, well, look, Neil's won, though, because I think the Queen needs this. She needs this award after the Prince Andrew news.
You always give it to the Queen.
I know, because, come on, she is just the Greatest Britain, full stop, isn't she? So if someone nominates it, I've got to go with it.
Well, even compared to Zayn Malik. I mean, that's crazy.
And Keir Starmer.
Daisy McAndrew, very quickly, your Union Jackass nomination.
My Union Jackass is no
God, everyone's
Djokovic.
slagging off this great man this week. I can't deal with it.
He
Go for it,
got
Daisy.
a positive COVID result and still went and did interviews and did events.
Aren't we meant to be learning to live with COVID? That's what I thought was going on. He said he's socially distanced. I say good on him. Neil, your Union Jackass nomination.
For me, it has to be Boris, actually, because of everything that's gone on, having parties, not having parties, finally admitting we've kind of all thought it.
Yeah, no, I understand why we've been speaking about it all show, haven't we? And Amanda, your Union Jackass nomination.
My darling Daisy and I are as one. I'm nominating the judge who let Djokovic into
He was following the law of your home country.
Get over yourself, Dan. He should have been kicked out.
Well, look, I've never done this before, actually. Surprisingly, there's been a lot of nominations from the past, but I have never done this before. But the Union Jackass today has to be Boris Johnson, because he admitted he went to that party. He should never have gone, and it's now left his premiership in a perilous state. And we'll talk about this much more in tomorrow's show. Thank you, though, to my superstar panel, Amanda Platel, Neil Fox and Daisy McAndrew. I am back tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Thank you for your company tonight. Good night.
Hello, getting cold out there now. The sun has gone down. We'll keep largely clear skies across the south, but it will turn foggy in places, but also a frost likely across the south first thing in the morning, thanks to high pressure. Further north, notice quite a few isobars on the chart. It's been a windy day across northern Scotland. It stays windy here overnight, and that breeze will help to prevent a frost and will continue to bring quite a lot of cloud across certainly western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Elsewhere, though, clear skies, and especially in